I want to talk about desire right now because it's something that's been on my mind a lot. I think desire can feel like a loaded term because it's associated a lot of the times with these instincts or urges that we have to try to control in order to live a civilized life. But before I really get into how I've been thinking about it, I want to read this parable. It's a Buddhist parable about desire because I think it touches on an optimistic element of it that people might not associate with desire again when you're just thinking about it from the negative standpoint or a self-control standpoint. So this is a parable from the Lotus Sutra that the Buddha is giving to literally millions of disciples gathered around to hear him speak. Suppose there was an elder who owned a large house, and this house was very old, decaying and falling apart. Its great rooms were in dangerous condition, its pillars broken and rotting at the base, its beams and rafters leaning and askew, its foundation and steps in a state of collapse. The walls and partitions were cracked and broken, their plaster crumbling away. The thatch was in disorder and falling off. The ends of the eaves had slipped away. The surrounding fences were crooked and falling down, and piles of rubbish were all over the place. 500 people were staying in that house, with kites, owls, hawks, and eagles, crows, magpies, pigeons, doves, lizards, snakes, vipers, scorpions, centipedes and millipedes, newts and ground beetles, weasels, ferrets, rats, and mice. All sorts of evil creatures scurried about everywhere. There were places stinking with excrement, overflowing with filth, where dung beetles and worms came together. Foxes, wolves, and jackals bit and trampled each other to gnaw on carcasses, scattering the bones and flesh. Because of this, packs of dogs, gaunt with hunger and shrinking from fear, looking everywhere for food, came running to snatch and grab, fighting and scuffling, snarling and barking. That house was frightening, extraordinary. All over the place were goblins, ogres, and satyrs, evil spirits who devour human flesh, and all sorts of poisonous insects. Evil birds and beasts bore offspring, hatched and nursed them, each hiding and protecting its own. Satyrs tried to outdo one another in seizing and eating them, and when they had eaten their fill, their evil hearts became more inflamed, and the sound of their shrieking was extremely dreadful. Kumbanda demons crouched on clumps of earth, sometimes springing up a foot or two from the ground. Wandering around here and there, they amused themselves according to whim, sometimes seizing a dog by its feet and beating it until it lost its bark, sometimes putting a foot on a dog's neck, frightening it for their own amusement. Large, tall demons, naked, black, and emaciated, who always lived in that house, would emit great and dreadful sounds, bellowing demands for food. There were demons with necks as thin as a needle, and demons with heads like an ox's. Some ate human flesh, some devoured dogs. Their hair a mess, cruel and ferocious, and driven by hunger and thirst. They raced about, shrieking and howling. Satyrs and hungry spirits, evil birds and beasts, hungrily hurried in all directions, peering through the windows and lattices. Such were the perils of this house, terrible and horrible beyond measure. This decaying old house belonged to a man who had gone out just a little earlier. All of a sudden the house caught on fire, and all at once the whole house was engulfed in flames. Ridgepoles, beams, rafters, pillars exploded with a cracking roar and broke, split, and fell as walls and partitions collapsed. The demons and spirits bellowed and wailed. The hawks, vultures, and other birds, and Kumbanda demons and others were filled with fear and panic. Unable to escape, evil beasts and poisonous insects hid in their holes. Pishacha demons, who also lived in the house, because they were weak in merit and virtue, were driven by the fire to cruelly attack one another, eating and drinking others' flesh and blood. Jackals and similar animals were already dead, and the bigger evil beasts fought to eat them. Foul smoke billowed up, filling the air everywhere. Scorched by the fire, centipedes and millipedes and poisonous snakes of every kind scurried from their holes, where Kumbanda demons grabbed and ate them, and hungry spirits, fire raging around their heads, tormented by hunger, thirst, and heat, rushed about confused and terrified. Such was the state of that house, dreadful in the extreme, with horrid calamities and a great fire, with many disasters, not just a few. At this time, the owner of the house was standing outside the gate, when he heard someone say, "A little while ago your children went into the house to play. They are young and ignorant, and engrossed in play." Hearing this, the elder was alarmed and rushed into the burning house, intending to rescue the children and keep them from being burned in the fire. So he told his children of the many dreadful troubles, the evil spirits and poisonous creatures, the fire spreading all around, one kind of suffering following another without end, the poisonous snakes, lizards, and vipers, the many kinds of satyrs, Kumbanda demons, jackals, foxes, and dogs, hawks, vultures, kites, owls, and all sorts of ground beetles and such, driven by hunger and thirst, were truly to be feared. "This," he said, "is a dreadful place, how much more so with this blazing fire." But the children didn't understand. Though they heard their father's warnings, they remained absorbed in their games and did not stop playing. Then the elder thought to himself, "My children are acting this way, adding to my anxiety and anguish. Right now there is not a single thing in this house to enjoy. Yet my children, bewitched by their games, pay no attention to my instructions and will be destroyed by the fire." Then he considered devising some skillful means and said to his children, "I have many kinds of rare, attractive playthings, wonderful, treasured carriages, goat carriages and deer carriages and carriages with big oxen are now outside the gate. Go out and see them. I have made these carriages especially for you. You can play with any of them in whatever way you like." When the children heard him tell about the carriages, they immediately raced each other, dashing out of the house to reach the open yard, away from the painful troubles. Seeing his children escape from the burning house and alive in the square, the elder sat on a lion's seat and congratulated himself, saying, "Now I am happy. These children were difficult to raise, ignorant, young, and foolish. They went into this dangerous house, though it was full of poisonous creatures and fearful goblins, with the raging flames of a terrible fire breaking out all around them. These children stuck to their play. Now I have rescued them and enabled them to escape from harm. This is the reason, good people, that I am happy now." Then the children, seeing their father sitting relaxed, came to him and said, "Please give us the 3 kinds of treasured carriages you promised earlier by telling us, 'If you children come out, I will give you 3 carriages, and you can choose whichever you like. Now is the time. Please give them to us.'" The elder was very wealthy and had storehouses full of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashell, and agate, and other kinds of precious things. He had made great carriages, magnificently adorned and decorated with railings around them, and bells hanging on all sides. Twisted gold cords with nets of pearls were spread out over the top of them, and garlands of golden flowers were hanging here and there. Many colored decorations were wrapped around them. They had cushions of soft silk and gauze. Over them were spread the best quality of fine felt, snow white and pure, worth hundreds of billions. Great white oxen, sleek, sturdy, and strong, of handsome build, were yoked to the treasured carriages, along with numerous servants, to guard and take care of them. The rich man gave one of these wonderful carriages to each of the children equally. Then the children, ecstatic with joy, mounted the treasured carriages and rode around in every direction, playing joyfully, freely, and without hindrance. So that was the parable of the burning house. And the way I take it is, obviously, we are the children. we as human beings going about this life are living in a world that's full of pain, suffering, and horror. We're so distracted by our playthings that we treat the house like it's a playground. In this parable, the father isn't able to get the kids to come out by just saying, hey, look, you're in a situation full of suffering, full of darkness, full of terror, and you don't have to be here. You can come out here. What does work is when the father plays on the desire of the kids and says, look, I know that right now what you want to do is play. So what I've done is I've created the most desirable thing for you. Carriages made of gold and silk with, pulled by magnificent animals. Come outside of this burning house and come see the gift that I've made for you. And so because the kids are just driven by, what they want the most, they're driven by their desire. And now they've been offered this amazing new thing, these new toys. They all run out of the house into safety, but not for the sake of the safety. It was for the sake of desire that they were driven away from the house. And I felt a wrestling, like a back and forth between like, oh, what do I do? How do I deal with the fact that I live in this world full of temptation, full of suffering, and I have to deal with these urges where, I want to just, I don't know, play video games all day or whatever it might be. I want to just give in to my desire and kind of ignore the burning house and all the demons around me. Many times it feels like the best offer, they're kind of empty. It's like, saying, oh, just go work out or go make some great art or go to work and make a bunch of money or, oh, start a family and, foster a bunch of love around you. A lot of the times these things can feel like empty promises because when I look at the people around me, you know, I don't see people who are freed from their suffering and freed from their desire in any of those things, whether it's family, work, play. It seems like everybody's kind of chasing their desire into a distraction that's unfulfilling. And so it's like being told that there's this great gift outside of the burning house, only to walk into not only a situation where you don't have the actual gift, but another burning house full of demons and terrible things. And you can distract yourself with playing, but at the end of the day, the house is still burning. So in my most nihilistic, most empty, depressed, cynical moments, I've felt like I don't really have a way out of the burning house, and all these promises that people might tell me in order to get me to leave whatever situation I'm currently in are empty. They are fantasies, and really they're burning houses of their own. And so there's nowhere to go. And so, shy of just exiting life, the only real solution is just to be occupied with my playthings while the house burns so I don't have to think about it. Trying to just say, hey, get out of the house for your own good doesn't work. We are like children, and more than just that, saying it doesn't work, it doesn't even make sense to expect it to work. It's not in our instinct, it's not in our nature to acquiesce to that type of incentive of just pure deliverance from evil, just pure safety. No, we're driven by our desire, we're driven by our instincts. And so true liberation from suffering has to appeal to those quote unquote base desires or lesser desires in order to actually save us. For me, it's kind of just like a light at the end of the tunnel, because I deal with a lot of desire very strongly, and I'm constantly feeling like I'm fighting an uphill battle. And sometimes I think, well, what if this is for nothing? And, am I just weak for being so driven by these desires? But, this parable is thousands of years old, and it speaks to a vital element of human nature. We are all children driven by desire that we cannot be expected to overcome. It's within our nature. And so it is in following the desires that will free us from this house, that we can actually gain some liberation. The real lesson is in understanding your predicament, understanding the ways in which you're in a burning house, the ways in which you're surrounded by demons and terrible creatures of all kinds, and recognizing, all right, which desires are the desire to just stay in this situation and play games, and which desires are going to take me out of this burning house. Those desires might not even be linked to safety or freedom from suffering, or even anything that might look positive in any way. Those things that might free me from the burning house might be my greed, even. But regardless, if we want to find some sort of freedom from this burning house, it's not good enough to just say, well, hey, look, I'm in a terrible situation, and if I want to get free, I got to get out of it. Better to say, what things are out there that I desire? What things are out there that excite me, that tempt me to actually take the action to leave from this place that I'm in and go out there, regardless of whether it's a better environment out there, but focusing on those elements of desire, focusing on temptation as a way to free us from suffering is a powerful idea that I haven't fully wrapped my head around exactly how it manifests in my life. I think my shame and my guilty conscience are a big part of it. You know, if I don't create things, or if I don't go to the gym, or if I don't reach out to friends, if I don't make money, I'm going to feel a lot of guilt. And so that desire for satisfaction, that desire to be able to kind of pat myself on the back and appeal to my narcissism and vanity that want me to view myself as this good person, as this successful person, following that temptation might be the only way out of the burning house that I've found myself in. What are the games that keep me in the house? What are the temptations that free me? What are the temptations that are going to keep me in this exact same burning, suffering situation? And what are those temptations and the ways of manifesting those temptations that might actually get me to take action? And in taking that action, free me from this form of suffering that I found myself in.